Good morning, everyone. I want to call this meeting to order of the Sweetwater Commission and ask Ollie Wilburn of Rema Valley Church to give our invocation, and Commissioner May is going to lead us in the pledge.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the blessings of the rain that you pour upon our land.
Amen.
We thank you, Lord, for the rain of your Holy Spirit upon the hearts of your people as well. Lord, we just give you thanks for your presence upon this meeting today. We thank you, Lord, for your godly counsel and wisdom upon our city leaders. We thank you, Lord, for your continued covering and wisdom upon our officers and our firemen, Lord, as they serve our community. We thank you, Lord, for just your continued grace upon this land, Lord, and that your name would be exalted by our actions. And Lord, we thank you most of all for just continuing to touch the hearts of this community, Lord, to live big for you in the days we live in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Would you join in the pledges of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, we'll now move to item 4, which is discuss, consider, and act upon approval of minutes for the meetings held on September the 11th, September the 18th, and September 25th of 2018.
I move that be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll now hear a presentation from Chief Grant Madden.
Not that long ago, we had an ambulance call, which is started out normal, not unlike the rest of them that, well, most of them that come in. They're not all routine, but they got dispatched to an address. They went to that address, found it to be an emergency siren. The 500 block of East Alabama is an emergency siren standing there. Invalid address. Because of the things that they did after that is why they earned this award. This was started actually by their assistant chief that recognized the things that they did and the way that they went above and beyond. The call was pretty serious, and forgive me for the details that I am going to leave out due to HIPAA laws and things like that, but pretty serious call. They get there, there's nobody at this address, there's no house at this address. They call dispatch back, dispatch gets them a name and then looks up the address that way. They go to that address. The patient is not there either. The person that's at that address says maybe they went to a sporting event, go look there. They went to the sporting event, they ask around, they ask people that might know this patient or this person, the caller. Without even so much as a clothing description, they were able to locate this patient, the person, the caller, and get the person the help that they so desperately needed. Definitely making a difference in that person's life. It took an hour and a half or so from the time of the original call coming in to the time that they actually made patient contact or caller contact. And because of their efforts of not giving up, not quitting, realizing the severity of the call, which if the caller doesn't even tell us where they're at, it kind of takes us off the hook. But because of what they felt, what they thought needed to be done, they continued to search, until they found the person that called for help and got them the help that they needed and made a difference in their life. So because of that, I'd like to Chris is not able to make it. Chris is actually in paramedic school right now, and he is at paramedic school right now. So his wife is here to accept his Meritorious Service Award, and then Cody Dakin as well. They were the two on the ambulance, and I'd like to read the citations that they're both getting. I'm pleased to announce to give this award to Chris Taylor and Cody Dakin for their outstanding performance of their duty during a recent ambulance call. Cody and Chris were dispatched to an address that turned out to be invalid. Undeterred by the invalid address and very limited information, they were able to locate the caller at an event and help the caller get the medical attention that was so desperately needed. Due to their actions, a life was saved that would otherwise slip through the cracks. I believe that their actions were above and beyond the call of duty, and I'm proud they are members of the Sweetwater Fire Department. It's men like this and their willingness to serve that make them invaluable to our community and this department. Good job, Chris, Cody. have to hold it for a while and get used to it. Thank you. Hang on, let's do this.
Thank y'all. Excuse me, Chief? Grant?
Yes.
Would you tell us some more meritorious services that may have happened this morning?
You're talking about the people in the creek?
Yeah, the rescue.
We got called, just before, right around 6 o'clock, 6:15-ish, for people in a creek. And the callers could see part of the car. This was at Cottonwood Creek. I believe that's 230 and 1856 near that intersection. The car washed off into Cottonwood Creek, was just a couple yards off of that rock bridge that's there to the east. They went, we got there, we took our big brush truck, our big 5-ton military truck, and tried to make an effective rescue, but the people were too far down the creek for us to get to them. The water was receding pretty quickly. There ended up being 3 people. We could hear more voices. It turned out to be bystanders or do-gooders that were out trying to help locate them and find them. We ended up pulling all 3 of them out safely with no issue. They were cold, they were wet, had been in the water, according to them, since somewhere between 3 and 4 o'clock this morning. They were trying to get home. He said he never even saw the creek. They were driving along, and all of a sudden their car turned left and they were floating down the creek. So 2 males and 1 female were effectively pulled out of the creek this morning. So, and all alive and well, dropped off at their house.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, we'll now hear a presentation from Jay Hardaway regarding West Central Texas Council of Governments Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Jay Hardaway, and I represent H2O Partners. And H2O Partners is an Austin-based firm that is contracted with West Central Texas Council of Governments, who I'll refer to as the COG from here on, to assist with hazard mitigation planning for the member counties and cities. Mayor McKenzie serves on the COG board, so I'll apologize in advance to he and Mr. Vella, who have heard all of this before. And Sage Diller, who will have to hear it again when I speak to the city of Abilene, probably. So every 5 years, communities are required to update their hazard mitigation plan, which is essentially it's essentially a list of hazards that could occur in a given area and things that the local government can do to mitigate those hazards. So if the hazard is, say, fire or flooding, cleaning out culverts, cleaning out stormwater gathering places, things of that nature. Every 5 years, you have to update that plan to be in compliance with FEMA's grant process. So if you're aware of a hazard that needs to be mitigated, you apply for federal grant funding. The first thing they do is look at that and say, do you have a updated draft plan? Well, in this case, you do, and this process, while it occurs every 5 years, it has a long tail and a lot of work at the front end. So to some extent, it's always going on. Members of this council, particularly Mr. McKenzie and Mr. Vella, have attended meetings in the past in Abilene, Anson, and I believe there was a meeting here as well a couple years ago to put in the initial information in the plan. And so at this point, a draft has been circulated to specifically Planning Area 3, which includes Nolan County as well as Fisher County, Mitchell County, and Scurry County. We're soliciting kind of last minute feedback, edits, things of that nature on the draft plan. It will then be submitted to the state and then FEMA for final approval. I anticipate that will occur sometime early next year, but it's FEMA, so who knows? They have other things that they're dealing with right now, and so I don't know where we fall in the pecking order on that. Once the final plan is approved by FEMA, it will then be formally adopted by this council again sometime probably early next spring. So I'll be back here again for that, but I felt that it was important that you guys be made aware of the work that's being done already on this process by your staff, elected officials, and other people. So I've sent, so the draft plan is about 700 pages long. As I mentioned, it encompasses entities beyond just the city of Sweetwater. And so I've sent Mr. Vella not only a link to the plan, but highlighted the specific pages that apply to the city of Sweetwater. If you want to read the whole plan, I think that's wonderful. But for sure, I would hope that you'd familiarize yourself with the recommendations made for the city of Sweetwater, though none of them will be surprising in terms of the hazards and weather concerns around here. They may change over a 1,000-year period, but not over a 5-year period. So shouldn't be any new information. And before I wrap up and take any questions, Sweetwater and Nolan County are unique in that thus far in the meetings I've had, and I spoke to Commissioner's Court yesterday, the burden of work is shared pretty evenly by cities within Nolan County and the county itself, and that is somewhat unusual. Typically, what I've seen thus far, it's usually either the county or the largest city that does all the work on this issue. And so I've met with the city of Roscoe. I've not met with the city of Blackwell yet, but I will next week. And then Sweetwater and Nolan County, and everybody is aware of the concerns. Everybody's put in a lot of time in reviewing the draft, and I do think that's unusual, and you guys are to be commended for that. So happy to take any questions or concerns, particularly at kind of a global level. Anything specific, if you've taken a look at the draft plan already, anything specific to the city, I'm sure Mr. Bella can answer. But this is the opposite of stories of brave rescues and things like that. I apologize. I should have probably gone first, because you build up to the fun stuff.
Thanks, sir.
Absolutely. I'm going to circulate a sign-in sheet to both the council and to everyone in attendance. So I would appreciate it, even if you're not a city employee, if you would sign my sign-in sheet. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now move to item 6A, which is discuss, consider, and act upon approval of the quarterly investment report for the quarter ending September 30th, 2018. Any questions of Patty?
I move we approve the investment report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now move to item 6B, which is discuss, consider, and act upon appointment of members to the Municipal Development District Board of Directors. Now turn it over to Mr. Becker.
Thank you, sir. I think when the MDD was getting established, I believe it was Dr. Peak suggested that all the board members be appointed as an interim position. That way, when the MDD actually got started in October of this year, then we would be able to put forth some members to be able to put on that board. And to kind of give you an idea who's on there now and how long they've been on there. Billy Wisnant since 2010, Jared Peak since 2012, Carolyn Lawrence 2016, Gil Cherry's 2017, and Joseph Crowd since 2018. And in our rules of operation, it calls for in this first year to appoint 3 with 2-year terms and 2 with 1-year terms.
Well, I think those who've been on there the longest would get the 1-year term. And those who've been on there the shortest would get the longer terms.
So with that, Commissioner May, you'd have Mr. Wisnant and Mr. Peak would get a 1-year term. Ms. Lawrence, Mr. Cherry, and Mr. Crouch would have 2-year terms.
Yeah.
And we're fine with that.
Do we need a motion to that effect?
Well, I think, am just asking the question, but I think you actually have to appoint the 5 board members, because this is time for that to happen. They were just in the interim positions before.
Well, I guess I would move that Billy Wisnett and Jared Peak receive a 1-year term, Carolyn Lawrence, Gil Cherry, and Joseph Crouch receive a 2-year term.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Sir. Go ahead and stay up there. We're now gonna skip down to item 6F, which is discuss, consider, to act on approval of a downtown facade improvement grant program.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
You should have a copy of the facade improvement grant program that we've established. Larissa Place, that is now with the Texas Department of Agriculture, did a great job on this. She went out and found about 5 different facade programs across the state of Texas, and took that and kind of developed one in for our community. And I think there was one part of it that we just bring to your attention, is that one of the things that she looked at is, should this grant program get approved, that the city would waive any building fees, permit fees, yes, I'm sorry, thank you, for that, but it still follows all the other policies, that you still have to have inspections, you'll still have to do everything else. And then we've kind of centered this first year on a downtown 9-block area.
Ask for a motion.
I move adoption of the downtown facade improvement grant program. Second.
Before we go further, does that include the waiver of the
Yes.
of the permit fees? Okay. Just want to be clear. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Well, thank you very much. And I think as we've talked in the last several months, changing to the MDD, we really believe that there'll be a lot of visual things that you're going to be able to see over the next 12 to 24 months happening in our community. And it's all because the community stepped up, said what they would like to have. And we have our city commission and our seed board have stepped up and said, we're not just going to talk about it, we're going to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now move to item 6C, which is discuss, consider, and act upon reappointment of Ms. Janice Geeson, whose term will expire October 18 as Commissioner of the Housing Authority of the City of Sweetwater, and appointment of Ms. Jessica Romero as Resident Commissioner for a 2-year term.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll now move to item 6D, which is discuss, consider, and act upon appointment of Ms. Melinda Makata Garza for Sweetwater Nolan County Welfare Board city position number 2.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now move to item 6E, to discuss, consider, and act upon authorizing staff to approve project plans and advertise to receive seal bids for SCADE system replacement, disinfectant boosting station, and water line replacement to be funded by the Texas Water Development Board. Mr. Sage.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Commission. We have developed a set of plans for the project you just mentioned. This project will install a chloramine boosting station out at the airport standpipe. It'll also do a full, complete replacement of the SCADA system, and then also replace various water lines throughout the system. We've discussed this project. We've submitted the chloramine boosting station design to TCEQ. We've received approval on that. We've submitted these plans to the Water Development Board for their review of the front-end documents in the drawings. That's currently being reviewed. We anticipate that approval hopefully in the next 30 days. And then standard protocol is to come before the commission for approval to bid the project once we get approval from the Water Development Board.
Sage, is the boosting station what we call Booster B?
No, sir. No, sir. This will
Okay.
be a new installation out at the airport standpipe. Losing a wholesale customer and lower demand out at that tank requires city staff to cycle and flush that tank a great deal, especially in the summertime. This will boost the disinfectant in that location, hopefully to minimize the amount of flushing that we have to do, saving that water.
Has there been a disinfectant station there before?
No, sir.
Okay.
This will be another tool for the staff to utilize in that location.
That UV light or?
No, sir. It's just the disinfectant that's in the system now, which is chloramines. This is just boosting what's already in the water.
Okay, thank you. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we will now move to item 6G, which is discuss and consider an act upon approving City Manager David Villa to enter into a meet and confer agreement with the city's Sweetwater Police Department Association dated October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2021. Any questions for Lisa?
Just a comment, Mayor, before we open it up for discussion and a vote. Just like to point out that this is the culmination of a long, arduous, is that the right word for it, Jeremy? Challenging, but I think in the end, very rewarding process between city administration and management and the leadership of the Sweetwater Police Patrol Association, which Sergeant Bohall heads up. We met over the course of several months to try to work out details to get to a meet and confer agreement. For those of y'all that aren't aware, this process was really started when the voters voted in the ability for the police department to be a meet and confer group. And all that means is that, literally what it means is the city administration and the leadership of the Patrol Association meet and confer about items that are mutually beneficial to both groups. They can be issues related to how we bring police officers on board, when we separate, how we promote, issues related to pay and safety and welfare and those kinds of things that are very important, not only to the officers but their families and us up here in city administration as well, and the city commission especially. So this is the culmination of a process. We've put everything in writing. We've met, we've conferred, and now we've memorialized what we've agreed upon in an agreement that would last the next 36 months. And we're looking forward to continued conversations and continuing to grow the relationship and build the trust between city admin, city leadership, and the Police Patrol Association and their membership. So that being said, I'm available to answer any questions. Sergeant Bohall's available, and your team as well.
Well, this is something, I guess putting it in writing is something new. I guess meet and confer has been in existence for several years, but
Yes, sir.
I think the procedure in the past has been somebody's talked with city manager and that was meet and confer.
That was typically the culmination of it is memorializing it into some type of agreement. When I was in Abilene, we were the first city to put that in writing. That was probably about the 06, 07 timeframe. Since then, cities all over Texas have come to the table, meet and conferred, and then memorialize those discussions into an agreement like ours, and then move forward with that.
Chief Rita, do you have any comments about it?
Well, sir, what this is an opportunity for us to continue to evolve. We are the smallest civil service agency in the state of Texas, and so we follow true 143 law, where some cities that are in much larger population masses have things built into legislation that allow them to do things other than the Route 143. Meet and confer allows us to do a lot of things that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do. You'll note in there one of the things is the lateral hire, exempting of examinations. We're able to, I gained 12 years of potential applicant there. Right now we're stopped at 44, now we'll be at 56 at the time, by the time of appointment. And when we have mandatory law enforcement retirement in the federal system of 55, that gives us a little gap to possibly pick up some retired state employees, possible retired federal employees, it just allows us to try and draw from a larger pool than what we're getting right now. So I think it's a really good thing for the city overall, the patrol officers and the city as well.
Well, when I first got this, I guess I called Mr. Vale. I guess one of the things that kind of bothered me, and I just kind of wanted y'all's opinion on that, is that it looks like in the case of promotions that you could be bringing in people outside of the city of Sweetwater into making those decisions. And I guess I've got a little heartburn about somebody outside the city of Sweetwater making those decisions. Is that okay with the police association? And
We came together on that, and it's called an assessment center, and it's utilized all across the state. It allows our peers that know what it takes to be a sergeant, to be a corporal, a lieutenant, a chief, whatever the case may be. It allows you to draw in that experience from other entities that have gone through this process, and they don't solely make the decision in their own self. It's another tool, right there.
Yeah, can I?
Yes.
Come back, please.
So one of the reasons why we wanted to kind of go with that process, and that was part of what the police officers also wanted as well, because it allows us to bring in experienced officers from other agencies, and maybe won't have a bias, which we all have. I mean, it's easy to have, you work with somebody, you know someone, maybe you have an officer, let's say it's somebody outside the police department, you got an officer that stopped you and wrote you a ticket for something maybe you didn't feel like you deserved, or there's all types of different biases, but it allows us to maybe get past those kind of things and bring people with experience that have experience in either that rank. So if it's a sergeant, they'll have to be a sergeant or higher, lieutenant or higher, but they have experience and knowledge, working knowledge in what it takes to perform, but without the personal biases maybe that might occur. So it's something that we as officers in the department that we encouraged and we actually want to support in place.
okay, thank you.
Any other question?
Move we authorize city manager to enter into this meet and confer agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
And Mayor, before moving forward, just one more thing. I do want to point out and publicly thank the members of my staff that helped put this agreement together to get it rolling. We did have, like I mentioned before, a team of city administrative staff that met with the association leadership to discuss the details and make the sausage and all that. Lisa Adama has led that team, and so Lisa, thank you for being our lead negotiator on that. Kirk Harris, Patty Torres, Grant Madden, and sat at the table and meet and conferred with the association. I'd like to thank Chief Frida for his wisdom and guidance and leadership in helping us get to this point. Our first meet and confer agreement with the association. We're very proud of that. And then Sergeant Bohal and your team as well. It was a pleasure to work with you all, and we look forward to continued conversations and continued growth in building that relationship between us. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to item 6H, which discuss, consider, and act upon proposed solicitation ordinance. Chief Frida.
Well, I come to you again bearing gifts of an amendment to an ordinance. I did give a disclaimer of future visits on ordinance as we move forward. We'll be trying to amend more of our ordinances to come more current with that. And what this is an amendment to our proposed solicitation ordinance, and that we already have in place. The only thing that's lacking is we don't have hours of prohibition in our residential areas, and it's something it kind of comes and goes. Every time we have a big group of, say, for the electricity or whatever the case may be, Woodbridge or another company like that goes door to door and solicits, is sometimes they tend to come in at times when the family's trying to come together and have family night, sit down to dinner, go to church, whatever the case may be. And so the complaints have come in, and they continue to come in, but whenever these groups come in. So We have looked at some other cities, including Abilene, in which they do also have a prohibition between, theirs is 7 p.m. to 9 a.m. We've also had the time of 8 p.m. to 9 a.m. thrown around. I'd like to remind you, this is a first reading, and so if you have some questions to this, we can tweak it and bring it back to you at the second reading in November.
Chief, how many solicitors actually come in and get a permit? I know sometimes when they come to my door, I ask,
Yes, sir.
and the burglar alarm pest told me they didn't need one.
And they are correct with that. They are exempt by state law. When they go through their process of licensure and everything and pay their fees directly to the state gives them looks almost like a driver's license. And it's a statewide alarm peddling vendor's permit. They're exempt from statute. I don't necessarily agree with that, but nobody asked me. But when we tend to have some of the electricity groups that come in and try to sell their price per kilowatt hour versus their competitor, there's times that we'll have this entire lobby shut down. I mean, we'll have 15, 20, 30 people out there trying to get permits. Last week we had a group of 6 standing around out there trying to get their permit to go. I think it was called Do It Fluid. It just varies, and so, but it seems like pretty regular. We're having different vendors come through, and sometimes the groups are really pretty large, and it never fails that we end up with a half dozen calls or so whenever they show up. We know when they're in town, we start getting the calls. One thing I would mention beforehand is that as we move forward with this, I am talking to 2 different vendors, one of them being PMAM, and then there's another vendor out there, and we're trying to move this process to a digital format to relieve the stress that we're seeing, the clogging in the lobby, and take the workload off of our staff. And when they apply for these permits, on their permit they receive, it will have that period of time that it's prohibited by ordinance for them to peddle.
Chief, while the alarm folks are exempt from having to get a permit, would the time constraints still apply to them?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They're pretty good about even some of the alarm people are pretty good about coming by here and checking in with us. But this will be on the web page. It will be part of our ordinances, and so we'll educate the alarm industry because not all of them check in with us. There are a couple of them that are pretty pushy that don't.
Chief, does this also apply to someone or some outside group coming in, applying or asking for, quote, charitable contributions, or is this simply selling?
This is simply the selling, particularly like the energy, Kirby vacuums, Woodbridge, Abilene Airtight, like a window salespeople. Schwann's wouldn't be applicable to Schwann's because they go to set people's houses. They usually set those times up with them. Churches, charitables, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, school-related stuff is not covered by this. We exempted them.
So basically, it's for-profit cold calling.
Yes,
Is
sir.
what we're putting the
Yes, sir.
prohibitions on. Okay.
I think SCOTUS, they pushed out a ruling several years ago where we can't hit anybody on ag products in interstate commerce. But some of the stuff like Schwann's, that's where that comes into play. But some of these others, we can regulate their times and permits.
I move we amend the ordinance, the solicitation ordinance.
Second.
Which there's 2 time frames listed, Larry.
Oh.
There's a 7 p.m. to 9 a.m. and an 8 p.m. to 9 a.m.
I'd say 7 p.m. to 9 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now read the ordinance into the record, amending Chapter 17, Article 2, entitled Peddlers and Solicitors, describing procedures for licensing of peddlers and solicitors and providing a penalty for violation. We'll now move to item 6I, which is discuss, consider, and act upon authorizing the city manager to execute final settlement agreement and related documents with EHT.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
City manager's report.
Yes, sir. The first item I wanted to give an update about, we got a city election coming up. We've got charter issues on the ballot. There'll be 23 propositions for the voters to decide on, a yes or no voting on each of those. Just a little bit about the times and dates for the election. Early voting starts Monday, October 22nd, and will run through October 31st on those weekdays, right, Patty? Monday through Friday, and then the next week, Monday through Wednesday. Every day here at City Hall from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. each of those days. Now, beginning Thursday, November 1st, we're open here at City Hall for early voting from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then the same time schedule the next day, Friday, November 2nd, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Again, all of that early voting will take place here at City Hall in this room. And then on election day, which is Tuesday, November 6th, also open your 12-hour period from 7A to 7P. And the precincts are listed below. Now, you would have to go to the precinct where you live and are eligible to vote in order to fill out your ballot, right, Patty? And so precinct 1 at Broadway, at 2 is Trinity, 3 is at Lamar Street, precinct 4 is Evangelical Methodist, and then at precinct 9 is at Avondale Baptist Church. So so get with us if anybody has any questions about where to vote. We'll be happy to point you in the right direction. Patty's available for questions on this as the city secretary. She's running the vote on our behalf for the city. So if anybody has any questions, just let us know. And then the second item I have, let's see, a little delay on this. Water line construction. I apologize, I don't have a map, and Sage and Eddie, if I flub anything up, step in, please. But mobilization began on local water line construction yesterday, Monday, October 8th. It began on that date. It's funded by CDBG dollars. The area of impact is going to be on West 5th and 6th Streets from Poplar to Grape. And then the second section of that is on Walnut Street from 11th to 13th Streets. The time frame for this construction would be 2 months, give or take a little bit. Water service interruptions should be brief. If anybody inside or outside of those areas has any questions, please feel free to give us a call at 235-4166. We're glad to answer any questions on that. Gentlemen, if I left anything out, feel free to chime in.
The only thing I would say is construction is weather dependent.
Sure. Everything lately has been.
May take a little longer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's a good trade-off, though, isn't it?
That's right.
So, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, that's all I had today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Public input. Anyone wish to speak?
I'd like to take an opportunity. We're going to try and start to be better at this, but as we bring new members onto the police department, I think it's important that y'all come to know who our new team members are. And with us here we have Taylor Katia. Taylor comes to us. He's not a former. There's no such thing as a former Marine. He's a Marine. He comes to us from San Angelo, was down in Tom Green County, and is originally from Brownwood.
Yes, sir.
And so I'd like to welcome Taylor. He is wrapping up his FTO. He's in ghost phase right now, so he'll get turned loose
Monday, sir.
maybe Monday. So I would like to welcome Taylor to our family, our team, and to Sweetwater.
Glad to have you. Anyone else? Motion to adjourn.
So, second.
We didn't vote. I said we didn't vote on
All in
it.
favor?
Blink your eyes.
If not, you can stay.